My dear friend, today I must tell you a truth many people spend their entire lives trying to avoid. It is the kind of truth that stings when you first hear it, but it liberates you once you accept it. And that truth is this: no one is coming to save you. Not the people you expect, not the ones you admire, not the voices you hope will lift you out of your storm. Salvation is not arriving on horseback. Rescue is not hiding in someone else's hands. The only hand that can truly lift you is your own. We live in a world where it is easy to fall into waiting for the mentor who will finally see our potential, waiting for the friend who will catch us when we fall, waiting for the miracle that will wipe away the weight of our mistakes, waiting for someone, anyone, who will care enough to do the work we resist doing ourselves.
But waiting is a prison, and hope without action becomes a chain. Every day you wait for another to carry your burden, your own strength grows weaker, your own spirit more restless. Think of life as a vast ocean. Many people believe that one day a ship will appear on the horizon, lowering ropes to haul them on board, feeding them, clothing them, guiding them safely to the shore. But the truth is, that ship is not coming. The ocean is wide, the waters deep, and the only vessel you can rely on is the one you build with your own two hands. You must carve your raft from your choices, shape your sails from your discipline, and guide your direction by the compass of your will. If you wait for another man's ship, you will drown in your waiting. This does not mean that help never comes or that kindness never finds you. People may walk beside you. Some will offer guidance. Some will give comfort. But no one can live your life for you. No one can carry the weight of your responsibilities without crushing their own. No one can walk every step of your journey when their own feet bleed from the path they must travel. Even love, as powerful as it is, cannot live for you. It can support, but it cannot substitute. Many struggle because they confuse comfort with salvation. They believe that because someone listens, that person must also lift them. They believe that because someone offers advice, that person must also build the road for them. But comfort is not rescue. Advice is not action. Guidance is not execution. If you mistake one for the other, you will live your life disappointed, angry at those who never truly failed you, because they were never meant to save you in the first place. Take a moment to think about the struggles you carry now, the habits you know are holding you back, the fears you keep hidden under layers of excuses, the dreams you keep waiting to start, telling yourself, one day, when someone helps me, when someone gives me the chance, when someone finally notices me. But let me ask you, how long have you been telling yourself that story? 1 year? 5? 10? And how many days slipped through your hands like sand, wasted, not because the chance never came, but because you never stood up to seize it yourself? The hardest lesson in life is that freedom comes with weight. To be free means to be responsible. To have choices means to own their consequences. To claim your power means to stop blaming everyone else for what you lack. That weight may feel unbearable at first, but soon you discover it is not a curse. It is the very strength that builds your muscles, your resilience, your courage. Responsibility is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Picture a young bird waiting in the nest. It sees the sky above and feels the hunger in its belly, but it waits. It waits for the parent to bring food. It waits for the wind to somehow carry it. But the day comes when no more food arrives. The parent has flown, the branch is empty, and the hunger gnaws deeper. The bird has two choices: starve in its waiting, or leap into the unknown, trusting that its wings will remember what they were made for. That leap is responsibility. That leap is the moment the bird discovers its power. And that is the leap waiting for you. Yes, it is frightening to realize that no one else can save you. It means there is no excuse left to hold on to, no one left to blame. But in that fear is also your freedom. Because once you know no one is coming, you stop waiting.
And when you stop waiting, you start moving. And when you start moving, the life you thought impossible begins to unfold beneath your feet. This is the beginning. This is the first door you must walk through. The acceptance that you are the architect of your own rescue, the author of your own story, the captain of your own vessel. The moment you accept this, everything changes. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become stronger. So let this truth settle in your bones. No one is coming. No cavalry, no savior, no secret hand that will carry you through the storm. But that is not despair, it is deliverance. For the moment you stop looking outward, you begin looking inward. And what you will find there is not weakness, not insufficiency, but a power you have never fully claimed. The power of responsibility. The power of action. The power of you. You see, when people finally realize no one is coming to save them, the first enemy they must confront is not the world. It is the habit of blame. Blame is the most seductive excuse. It feels like relief in the moment, like medicine for a wound. You point to your parents, your past, your circumstances, your boss, your partner, even fate itself, and say, "This is why my life is the way it is. This is why I cannot move forward." And for a moment, it feels lighter. Because if it is their fault, it cannot be yours. But here lies the trap. Blame is a drug, and like every drug, it numbs but never heals. The more you use it, the weaker you become. Every time you point your finger outward, you are pointing away from your own power. You are handing over the keys to your freedom. You are saying, "I cannot change until they change. I cannot rise until they lift me." And just like that, you chain yourself to a future that will never arrive. Consider a garden. Imagine you plant seeds and then blame the sun for being too hot, the rain for being too heavy, the soil for being too dry. You stand with your arms folded, angry at nature, refusing to water, refusing to tend. What happens? The garden withers. Not because it was impossible, but because you chose complaint over cultivation. Blame does not feed your soil, it poisons it. And if you allow it, your dreams will die thirsty. The irony is that the world does throw obstacles in your path. People will wrong you. Systems will fail you. Circumstances will test you. These are realities, not illusions. But here is the choice. Will you let these realities define you, or will you define yourself in spite of them? Blame says, "I am stuck because of them." Responsibility says, "I rise even though of them." Blame waits for fairness that may never come. Responsibility creates progress even in the storm. Some of the greatest spirits who ever walked this earth faced hardships so cruel they would break most hearts. They were abandoned, enslaved, silenced, mocked. Yet instead of clinging to blame, they clung to responsibility. They refused to hand their story to their enemies. They refused to surrender their power to those who wished them small. And because of that refusal, their names echo through history, while their oppressors have turned to dust. The truth is, blame and responsibility cannot share the same room. One will always push out the other. If you cling to blame, responsibility flees, and with it goes your power. But if you cling to responsibility, blame shrinks, starved of attention, until it becomes nothing but a shadow you step past. Responsibility is not about pretending everything is your fault. It is about claiming everything is your move. Think of chess. You may not control the moves of your opponent. You may not control the shape of the board. Sometimes the pieces you are left with are fewer, weaker. But the game is still yours. You still decide how to move, when to sacrifice, when to strike. Blame sits paralyzed, staring at the pieces lost, replaying every mistake, resenting every disadvantage. Responsibility looks at what is left and whispers, "I will still find a way to win." Now pause for a moment. Reflect on the words you use when you speak about your life. Do you often say, "If only they had helped me. If only they had not hurt me. If only I had been born in a different family, a different country, a different time"? These words are the language of blame, and every time you speak them, you drain yourself of the energy you could have used to build, to grow, to rise. Replace them with the language of responsibility. This is what I can do now. This is how I will use what I have. This is how I will shape tomorrow, regardless of yesterday. The world is watching. The people who secretly hope you fail feed on your blame. It justifies their own excuses. But when you choose responsibility, when you refuse to point fingers, you become a mirror. And in that mirror, others see their own power reflected back. That is how you change not only your own story, but the stories of those around you. You will discover that responsibility is not as heavy as you feared. It is not a chain around your ankles. It is a set of wings folded tight against your back. The moment you accept it, the wings unfurl, and you realize you were always meant to rise. The climb will still demand sweat, yes. The path will still bruise your feet. But every step you take with responsibility is a step that no one can take from you. So strip yourself of blame. Lay it down like an old coat that never kept you warm. Walk lighter, freer, knowing that though no one may come to save you, you no longer need saving. You are not helpless. You are not voiceless. You are responsible, and therefore, you are powerful. Once blame has been stripped away, the next truth rises like the sun. Responsibility without action is nothing more than a whisper. You can accept that no one is coming. You can let go of pointing fingers. But if you do not move, if you do not act, if you do not build, then nothing changes. Responsibility is not a thought. It is not a slogan you repeat to yourself in the mirror. It is a rhythm. It is a daily practice. It is the discipline that turns belief into reality. Imagine a farmer standing in the middle of a field. He knows the soil is fertile. He has stopped blaming the rain, the wind, the seasons. But if he carries no plow, if he scatters no seed, if he lifts no hand to water, the field will remain bare. Knowledge without labor is barren. Acceptance without discipline is powerless. To live with responsibility is to rise each day and ask, what step will I take now? Discipline is often misunderstood. People think it is punishment, a chain that binds. But true discipline is not a prison. It is a path. It is the bridge between where you are and where you wish to go. Without it, dreams remain smoke, drifting, shapeless. With it, dreams harden into stone, into foundations strong enough to hold the weight of your vision. Think of a sculptor. The marble is before him, vast and heavy. He cannot wish it into beauty. He cannot blame the stone for being stubborn. Day after day, he must strike it with his chisel. Some strikes are small, some echo loud, but each one leaves a mark. Slowly, the form emerges. Discipline is the chisel. Your life is the marble. And every day you act, every time you choose consistency over comfort, you carve yourself closer to the masterpiece you were meant to be. But discipline demands sacrifice. It will ask you to trade comfort for progress, distraction for focus, excuses for execution. It will demand that you rise when the bed whispers for you to stay. It will demand that you write when inspiration is nowhere to be found. It will demand that you train when your body aches and work when your mind is tired. And though it feels harsh, it is in that harshness that your power is born. Consider fire. Left untended, it fades to ash. Fed too much at once, it rages out of control. But fed steadily, log by log, it grows into a steady flame that warms, protects, and endures. Your discipline is that steady feeding. Without it, your passion burns out. Without it, your vision consumes you. But with it, your life glows steady, strong, unshakable. Responsibility whispers, act. Discipline answers, I will. And when those two voices unite, nothing remains impossible. Look at the lives of those who built legacies. Not just names carved into history, but souls who shifted the world. They were not always the most talented, not always the most gifted, but they were disciplined. They rose before the world stirred. They worked when no one applauded. They moved even when doubt screamed at them to stay still. And because they acted, because they refused to wait, the world could not help but notice their becoming. Now hear me clearly. Discipline does not mean perfection. You will stumble. You will break your own rules. You will fail at times. But discipline is not about never falling. It is about never surrendering to the fall. It is about returning again and again to the path you promised yourself you would walk. It is the repeated decision to stand back up, no matter how many times you slip. Ask yourself, what does responsibility look like today? In the small hours, in the quiet moments. It may be setting the alarm an hour earlier to read, to train, to build. It may be writing one page of the book that terrifies you. It may be making the call you have avoided, facing the truth you have hidden from. Responsibility is vast, yes, but it is built brick by brick, habit by habit, step by step. You need not climb the mountain in one leap. You need only take the next step, and the next, and the next. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation is a spark, fleeting, unreliable. Discipline is the wood stacked before you, ready to burn whether or not the spark arrives. Motivation may come and go, but discipline ensures the fire never dies. That is why responsibility and discipline are twins. One without the other cannot endure. So when you wake tomorrow, do not ask, who will help me? Ask instead, what will I build? Do not ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, how will I respond? And then move. Move with small steps, with steady rhythm, with daily courage. For the life you long for is not built in the moments of waiting. It is built in the moments of doing. This is the second door you must walk through, the door of discipline. Beyond it lies the life you have dreamed of. But you must open it with your own hands. You must carry the key of consistency. You must accept the weight of daily action, for no one else can do this for you. And though it may feel heavy, though it may feel endless, remember this: every step of discipline is a step of freedom. Every action you take is proof that you no longer wait for saviors. You have chosen to become your own. Discipline alone cannot carry you if it is built on illusions. To truly take responsibility, you must walk into the mirror and stand unflinching before the reflection. This is where many falter, for self-honesty is the most difficult form of courage. It is easier to wake at dawn, easier to sweat through labor, easier even to endure pain than to look directly at the lies you tell yourself. Yet without this honesty, discipline becomes theater, effort becomes disguise, and progress becomes shallow. We all wear masks. We wear them because they protect us. The mask of strength when inside we are breaking. The mask of indifference when deep down we long to be chosen. The mask of success built on borrowed applause while inside we fear we are still unworthy. But masks are heavy, and sooner or later they slip. If responsibility is to mean anything, it must begin with tearing away these disguises and saying, "This is who I am, unpolished, unedited, unfinished. And yet, I am willing to face myself." Imagine a house with cracks in the foundation. You may paint the walls, hang curtains, decorate the rooms, but the cracks remain, and in time, the entire structure begins to tremble. That is what happens when you build discipline without self-honesty. Outwardly, life may look steady. inwardly, the ground shifts. One day, the cracks will show and everything will collapse. To avoid this, you must go down to the foundation, shine light into the corners of your soul, and see what is really there. This is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of liberation. To admit, yes, I am afraid. To confess, yes, I have been lazy. To whisper, yes, I betrayed my own potential. These are not the end of you. They are the beginning. For only when you acknowledge the wound can you clean it. Only when you admit the hunger can you begin to feed it. Only when you recognize the chains can you break them. The bravest thing you can do is to strip away the illusions, to admit when you have failed, not as a curse, but as a lesson. To accept when you have lied to yourself, not as shame, but as a turning point. For responsibility thrives in truth. And truth is not always flattering, but it is always freeing. Think of a lantern carried through a cave. The darkness resists, pressing in from every side. But one small flame is enough to reveal the jagged stones beneath your feet, the low ceilings above, the narrow passages ahead. You may not like what the lantern reveals, but without it, you stumble blind. Self-honesty is that flame. It does not always comfort you, but it always guides you. Why do so many people avoid this step? Because self-honesty demands accountability. Once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Once you know you have wasted time, you cannot keep pretending there was nothing you could have done. Once you see that your anger, your envy, your procrastination, your pride are part of why you are stuck, you can no longer place the weight fully on others. Responsibility shines too bright a light, and some people would rather live in the dimness of denial than in the blinding clarity of truth. But here is the gift of facing yourself. You discover power in places you thought only weakness lived. When you admit, yes, I have been undisciplined, you give yourself the chance to change. When you confess, yes, I have hidden behind excuses, you open the door to courage. Honesty is not a weapon against yourself. It is the key to unlocking who you are meant to be. Ask yourself, with courage, what lies have I told myself just to sleep at night? Have I claimed to want change, but secretly clung to comfort? Have I blamed others because it is easier than admitting my own fear? Have I pretended I am fine when my soul has been crying out for more? These are not questions meant to shame you. They are questions meant to awaken you. You cannot command your life until you command your truth. You cannot lead yourself until you learn to see yourself clearly. The mirror may be harsh, but it does not lie. And every time you face it, you strip away the weight of pretenses and walk lighter, freer, closer to the person you were always meant to be. So let responsibility lead you to self-honesty. Tear down the walls of denial, for they only keep you locked away from your own potential. Do not be afraid of the reflection, for even if it shows scars, even if it shows flaws, it also shows strength waiting to rise. And when you dare to see yourself as you are, you begin to step into who you can be. This is the third passage of responsibility. Beyond blame, beyond discipline, lies the courage to face your own truth. And in that truth is the seed of transformation. For you cannot change what you will not confront. But once you confront it, once you name it, once you embrace it, no one can ever use it against you again. Once you have faced yourself in truth, the next step appears like a mountain on the horizon. You must walk without leaning on crutches that were never meant to carry you. Too many souls lose themselves in the habit of dependence. Dependence on approval, dependence on rescue, dependence on voices louder than their own. And though companionship is beautiful, though community is sacred, there is a line between healthy connection and dangerous reliance. To take responsibility is to recognize that line and choose independence where dependence has chained you.
There are people who live their entire lives waiting for someone else to validate them. They hand their worth to strangers asking, "Am I enough?" They hand their choices to friends, pleading, "Tell me what I should do." They hand their strength to partners, whispering, "I cannot stand without you." And slowly, piece by piece, they empty themselves until nothing is left but echoes of others' voices. This is not love. This is not community. This is surrendering the steering wheel of your own life. Think of a bird that never learns to fly because it clings to the edge of its nest.
The parent brings food. The branches feel safe. The ground seems too far. And so it stays. But the nest was never meant to be forever. Sooner or later, the branches will break beneath its weight. The only way the bird can live is to leap. Dependence keeps you perched on the branch. Responsibility tells you to spread your wings. This does not mean you must walk life entirely alone. It does not mean you must harden yourself to love, friendship, or help, but it does mean you must choose wisely where you lean. Ask yourself, if the people you depend on vanished tomorrow, would you still stand? If the approval you chase was stripped away, would you still move? If the support you cling to crumbled, would you still rise? If the answer is no, then responsibility calls you to strengthen your own legs, to steady your own spine. There is a kind of quiet power in becoming self-reliant. It is not arrogance, it is not selfishness. It is the recognition that your foundation must be built on your own choices, your own courage, your own persistence. Others can add to your life, yes. They can enrich it, inspire it, even uplift it. But they cannot replace the core of it. If you outsource your life to others, then when they fall, you will fall too. Picture a climber scaling a cliff. At first, he may hold a rope tied to another, trusting them to anchor him. But what happens when that rope frays? What happens when the anchor slips? If his entire strength is in another's grip, his fall is inevitable. But if he has trained his own arms, strengthened his own fingers, steadied his own breath, then even if the rope fails, he will not. That is the difference responsibility makes. It teaches you to grip your own life tightly, not because others will never help, but because you cannot gamble your entire existence on someone else's hands. Dependency often hides in subtle places. It hides in the need to be liked, to be noticed, to be praised. It hides in the habit of waiting for permission before daring to begin. It hides in the fear of rejection, which keeps you chained to the approval of those who do not even know your soul. But every time you hand over that power, you weaken your own voice, and every time you reclaim it, you strengthen it. Understand this: the world will not always clap for you. The world will not always agree with you. The world will not always stand behind you. And if your worth depends on applause, if your path depends on consensus, then you will spend your life chasing shifting winds. But if you stand rooted in responsibility, you will move even when the crowd is silent. You will climb even when no rope is offered. You will walk even when no hand is outstretched. This is not to say you cannot be loved. This is not to say you cannot be helped. It is to say that love and help must be additions, not replacements, for your own strength. Build your life so that others may join it, not so that others may hold it up for you. Build your vision so that it can stand with or without the approval of those around you. Build your courage so that even if no one believes, you will still believe. The truth is, many of the people you lean on are carrying their own weights, their own storms, their own shadows. They cannot always hold you up. They cannot always save you, and it is not fair to ask them to. Responsibility is not only for yourself, but for them. It frees them from carrying what was always yours to bear.
It frees you from the quiet resentment that dependence breeds, and it creates space for relationships built not on need, but on choice, not on weakness, but on strength. So take this step. Cut away the chains of dependence that keep you from walking in your own power. Stand tall, even if your knees tremble. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Choose your path, even if no one else walks it with you. For once you learn to walk alone, you will discover something extraordinary. You are never truly alone. You carry within you enough strength, enough light, enough courage to carry yourself forward. And when others come beside you, it will not be because you need them to survive, but because together you can thrive. When you begin to stand on your own feet, the ground does not suddenly turn smooth. In fact, it often grows harsher. The winds feel sharper. The nights feel colder. The silence feels louder. This is the place where many turn back, for the path of responsibility is paved with struggle. But hear this truth: struggle is not the enemy. Struggle is the sculptor. It chisels you into the person you were meant to become. Too many people run from discomfort. The moment pain whispers, they retreat. The moment obstacles rise, they stop. The moment the journey demands sacrifice, they fold. But responsibility demands another response. It calls you to stand in the storm, to look pain in the eyes, and to say, "You will not break me. You will shape me." Think of a blade. In its raw state, it is nothing but metal, dull and unfinished. To become sharp, it must endure the fire, the hammer, the grindstone. The process is violent, yet the result is strength, precision, and purpose. So too with you. Responsibility takes you into the fire, not to destroy you, but to refine you. Without struggle, you remain dull. With it, you emerge sharpened. But here is the secret. Pain is a teacher if you allow it to be. Every failure, every loss, every rejection is not only a wound, but also a lesson. The problem is that most people focus only on the wound and never learn the lesson. They bleed but never heal. They suffer but never grow. They curse the fire instead of realizing it is molding them into something stronger. Responsibility changes this. Responsibility tells you, yes, I am hurting, but what is this hurt teaching me? Yes, I have fallen, but what wisdom lies in the fall? Consider the tree that grows on the mountain's edge. The winds batter it. The rains beat it. The soil is thin. And yet, because of the struggle, its roots grow deeper, its trunk stronger, its branches more resilient. Meanwhile, the tree in the sheltered valley, with gentle breezes and soft earth, grows wide but shallow. When storms come, it is the mountain tree that survives. You are that tree. Struggle is the wind that drives your roots deeper. Pain is the rain that strengthens your trunk. Without them, your growth remains shallow. With them, you become unshakable. Do not mistake this for romanticizing suffering. Struggle is not pleasant. Pain is not easy. Responsibility does not ask you to love the fire. It asks you to respect it. It asks you to learn from it instead of running from it. Every scar you carry can either be a prison or a map. If you see only the hurt, you remain trapped. If you seek the lesson, the scar becomes a guidepost. Ask yourself, what has my pain taught me? Did the rejection teach me that I am unworthy? Or did it teach me that I was pursuing the wrong door? Did the loss teach me that life is cruel? Or did it teach me to cherish what remains? Did the failure teach me that I should quit? Or did it teach me a better way to rise? Responsibility means asking these questions and daring to hear the answers. This is why so many remain stuck. They see pain as punishment instead of preparation. They see struggle as an obstacle instead of a teacher. And so they waste their suffering, carrying it as a burden instead of transforming it into wisdom. But when you take responsibility, suffering becomes sacred. It becomes the soil from which resilience grows. Think of the athletes who push their bodies to the limit.
The muscles tear, the lungs burn, the sweat pours. Yet they do not curse the pain, for they know it is the path to strength. Life is no different. Every tear, every stumble, every restless night is preparing you for the weight of your own potential. Pain whispers, "You are stronger than you think." Struggle insists, "You are capable of more than you believe." Responsibility says, "I will not waste this lesson." And let us be clear, responsibility does not mean you must carry every storm alone. There will be moments when the weight is too heavy. There will be days when your knees buckle. In those times, it is not weakness to rest. It is not weakness to ask for help. The difference is this: you do not collapse and blame the storm. You do not surrender and curse the world. You rest, you recover, and you rise again, wiser for what you endured. So do not fear the struggle. Welcome it as a teacher. Do not despise the pain. Let it write its lessons into your bones. For one day, when the winds roar again, you will find that you no longer tremble as you once did. You will stand tall, rooted, unshakable, not because the storm is lighter, but because you have become stronger. This is the next step of responsibility: to stop seeing pain as an intruder and begin seeing it as an instructor. To stop running from struggle and begin learning from it. To hold your scars not as shame, but as proof that you survived, and in surviving, you grew. For in the end, the fire will always come. But whether it consumes you or refines you depends on the choice you make. And responsibility is that choice. Survival is not the end of responsibility. It is only the threshold. Once you have endured pain, once you have stood in the fire and refused to break, a deeper calling emerges. Responsibility is not only about carrying yourself through hardship. It is about taking the raw material of your existence, the struggles, the lessons, the victories, and shaping them into meaning. Without purpose, endurance is empty. With purpose, even suffering becomes sacred. There comes a moment when you ask yourself, "Why am I here?" Not in the shallow way the world asks, but in the trembling voice of the soul. You are not alive only to endure. You are not breathing only to pay bills, to fight storms, to chase empty applause. You are here to craft a life that matters, a life anchored in direction, a life that leaves a mark on the world no one else can replicate. And that mark is your responsibility. Purpose does not fall from the sky. It is not handed to you like a crown. It is forged. Forged from the choices you make every day. Forged from the values you refuse to compromise. Forged from the passions that ignite you and the struggles that test you. Every time you take responsibility, you are shaping purpose. You are chiseling away the excess, revealing the form hidden within. Think of a sculptor with a block of stone. At first glance, it looks formless, meaningless, but within the stone is a figure waiting to be revealed. The sculptor does not wait for the figure to leap out. He takes his tools, his patience, his vision, and he carves. Slowly, painfully, deliberately, he shapes. That is how purpose is found. Life hands you a block of stone. Responsibility is the chisel. With every decision, every act of discipline, every embrace of struggle, you carve away what you are not, and little by little, who you truly are begins to emerge. But here lies the truth. Meaning is not about perfection. It is not about becoming flawless or admired. It is about becoming aligned. Aligned with what your soul knows to be true.
aligned with what gives your days weight, what gives your nights peace. Purpose is the compass. It points you forward when storms confuse you. It anchors you when temptation lures you. It reminds you why you rise again when life knocks you down. Without it, you drift. With it, you endure. Many people wander their whole lives because they never accept this responsibility. They wait for someone to hand them purpose, to tell them what they are meant to be. But no one can give you that. Not a parent, not a partner, not a mentor. They can guide, they can suggest, they can inspire, but the work of carving belongs to you. If you wait for others to tell you why you exist, you will spend your life following their paths and never walking your own. Responsibility demands that you ask yourself the hard questions. What do I value most? What will I refuse to compromise? What lights my spirit even when I am exhausted? What kind of life will I regret not living? These questions do not always have quick answers. They demand silence. They demand reflection. They demand the courage to admit when you have been walking a path that is not yours. But once answered, they light a flame that struggle cannot extinguish. There is a quiet joy in living with purpose. It does not mean every day is easy. It does not mean every step is certain. But it does mean that even the difficult days are not wasted. Even the pain has context. Even the silence has depth. When you wake each morning with purpose, you no longer live as a victim of circumstance. You live as an author, writing a story that carries weight. Imagine two people climbing a mountain. Both face storms, both stumble, both feel exhaustion, but one climbs without reason, cursing every stone, resenting every step. The other climbs because at the peak lies a vision, a dream, a purpose worth enduring for. Which one will endure? Which one will rise again when they fall? It is not the one with the easier path. It is the one with the deeper reason. That is the power of purpose. It transforms struggle from meaningless pain into meaningful progress. Do not think purpose must always be grand. It need not be to change the whole world. It may simply be to raise a child with love, to create beauty through your art, to bring kindness where cruelty reigns, to build something that outlives you. Purpose does not demand scale. It demands sincerity. It demands that you take responsibility for aligning your actions with your soul, no matter how small or ordinary they may appear. And here is the miracle. When you live with purpose, others are inspired. Your responsibility becomes a ripple, reaching lives you will never see, hearts you will never know. Your courage gives someone else courage. Your integrity gives someone else strength. Your persistence lights the way for someone else lost in the dark. This too is your responsibility, not only to yourself, but to the world. So do not settle for mere survival. Do not settle for drifting through days that leave no trace. Take responsibility not only to endure life, but to shape it, to carve meaning from the stone, to write purpose into your story. For no one will do it for you. No one else can. And when you do, you will find that even the heaviest burdens grow lighter, because they are carried with direction, with dignity, with meaning. When you finally begin to live with purpose, a new clarity dawns. It is not just about what you do, but about how you see. Responsibility reshapes your vision. It turns the ordinary into revelation. It turns silence into teacher. It turns time into treasure. Reflection becomes a mirror where you begin to see not only who you are, but who you have always been capable of becoming. There comes a quiet moment, after all the storms, when you sit with yourself and realize, I have carried myself here. The strength was not borrowed. The courage was not given. The endurance was not inherited. It was chosen, again and again. This is the deeper impact of responsibility. Not only that you rise, but that you finally recognize your own power. And yet, with that recognition comes humility. For you understand now that no one else was meant to save you, not because you were abandoned, but because you were always meant to discover the strength inside yourself. What would it mean if life gave you every answer? If someone else carried every weight? If the path was cleared for you? You would survive, perhaps, but you would never grow. The gift of responsibility is not its ease, but its demand. It demands that you meet yourself fully. It demands that you call forth courage you never thought you had. It demands that you step into your own becoming. Reflection asks you to pause and see the pattern. Every hardship you once cursed, every silence you once resented, every fall you once feared, they were all preparing you for this moment. They were the soil from which your resilience grew, the forge where your wisdom was made. And now, when you look back, you no longer see only pain. You see meaning. You see continuity. You see the handprint of your own persistence shaping you. But there is something even deeper. Responsibility does not only change how you see your past, it changes how you stand in the present. You begin to understand that every choice, no matter how small, is a brushstroke painting the canvas of your life. Every word spoken, every thought entertained, every action taken, all are threads weaving the tapestry of who you are becoming. And this realization sobers you. It makes you deliberate. You stop living carelessly because you see the cost of your choices. You see the weight of your freedom. And here is where responsibility transforms into reverence. You begin to treat your life as sacred. You guard your time as precious. You hold your words as powerful. You respect your body as a vessel that carries your spirit. You honor your mind as the garden where your future grows. This reverence is not born from fear, but from awe. Awe that you are alive, that you have agency, that you carry within you the ability to shape the very meaning of your days. Reflection also softens you, because as you see your own struggle clearly, you see others' struggles more gently. You no longer waste time judging the pace of another's journey. You no longer envy their victories, for you know every triumph carries unseen scars. Responsibility deepens compassion. It allows you to stand firm in your own story without needing to diminish anyone else's. It teaches you that strength and softness are not enemies. They are twins, born from the same womb of truth. And perhaps most importantly, responsibility shows you that you are never as alone as you feared. Yes, no one is coming to save you, but in saving yourself, you discover that countless others are walking their own roads of responsibility. You begin to recognize them in the resilience of a mother carrying her family, in the discipline of an artist creating unseen, in the courage of a friend who rises after failure. You see reflections of your own journey in the lives of others, and suddenly the world feels less lonely. Responsibility connects you not by dependence, but by shared strength. This is the deeper impact, a shift in perspective that changes everything. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "Why not me?" You stop wishing for a lighter load and start building stronger shoulders. You stop envying someone else's rescue and start cherishing your own resilience. Life stops feeling like a punishment and starts feeling like a profound invitation. But make no mistake, reflection is not passive. It is not sitting still and waiting for understanding to fall. Reflection is active, deliberate, intentional. It is carving time to sit with your life, to examine your choices, to honor your progress, to learn from your pain. It is the work of integrating your story into wisdom, instead of letting it lie as a pile of unprocessed experiences. Responsibility without reflection risks becoming duty without meaning. Reflection without responsibility risks becoming thought without action. But together, they form balance. Action rooted in wisdom, wisdom proven in action. That is the deeper life, one lived awake, aware, accountable. So sit with your life often. Ask yourself not just where you are going, but what it means. Ask yourself not just what you have suffered, but what you have learned. Ask yourself not just what you have achieved, but what it has shaped in you. This is the reflection responsibility demands. And when you do this, something sacred happens. The noise quiets. The comparisons fade. The envy weakens. And in the silence that remains, you hear your own voice clearly. Not the voice of fear, not the echo of others' expectations, but your own spirit speaking, saying, "This is who I am. This is why I rise. This is where I am going." That voice is the deeper gift of responsibility. It was always there, but reflection clears the clutter so you can finally hear it. There comes a final truth, one you cannot escape and one you must embrace. No one is coming. The rescuer you imagined, the savior you prayed for, the hand you hoped would reach out of the storm, it is not arriving. And at first that truth feels heavy, like a weight pressing against your chest. But if you stay with it, if you breathe through it, that same truth begins to shift. It transforms from burden into liberation. Because if no one is coming to save you, it means you have always had the power to save yourself. This is the climax of responsibility. The moment you stop waiting and start moving. You stop rehearsing excuses and begin creating change. You stop blaming shadows and begin lighting lamps. The world does not owe you rescue. Life does not owe you ease. But you owe yourself the courage to rise. You owe yourself the discipline to act. You owe yourself the dignity of a life fully lived. There is a fire within you that has survived every storm. You know this because you are still here. Every wound you thought would end you did not. Every failure you thought would define you did not. Every loss you thought would break you did not. The proof of your strength is not theoretical. It is written in your survival. You are standing here because something inside you refused to surrender. That something is your salvation. That something is your responsibility. So do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait for permission. Today is the only day you have, and it is enough. This breath, this hour, this choice. It is enough to begin. It is enough to change the direction of your life. You are not powerless. You are not trapped. You are waiting only for your own decision. And let me tell you this. Responsibility is not chains. It is wings. Yes, it weighs heavy at first because growth always does. But once you accept it, once you carry it with courage, it lifts you. It carries you higher than rescue ever could. Rescue places you where you are meant to be. Responsibility teaches you how to stay there. Responsibility makes you unshakable, untouchable, unafraid. The world will still be harsh. Storms will still come. Loss will still visit. But when you live with responsibility, none of it owns you. You remain steady. You remain whole. You may bend, but you do not break. Because your roots are deep. Your purpose is clear. Your reflection is strong. You have built yourself from the inside out, and nothing external can take that away. Think of it like a lantern in the night. Others may stumble, waiting for someone to bring them light. But you have learned to strike the match. You have learned to tend the flame. You walk into the dark not begging for illumination, but carrying it within you. And as you walk, your light does more than guide you. It guides others. Without meaning to, without planning to, you become proof that responsibility is freedom. This is the legacy responsibility leaves. Not only your survival, not only your success, but your example. Someone somewhere will see you stand and say, "If they can, I can too." Someone somewhere will see your courage and find their own. That is the ripple of responsibility. It begins in your chest, but it echoes across the world. So carry it proudly, carry it fiercely, carry it gently. Responsibility is not punishment. It is honor. It is the honor of shaping your own destiny. It is the honor of walking into the storm and choosing not to be consumed. It is the honor of saying, "This is my life. I will live it awake. I will live it true. I will live it mine." And when the final day comes, when you take your last breath and look back over the stretch of your years, you will not regret that no one came to save you. You will not resent that the path was hard. You will smile with a quiet strength, knowing that you saved yourself, that you lived fully, that you rose again and again, that you walked with dignity, even when the world was cruel, that you did not wait for rescue, but chose responsibility. That is the final victory. That is the climax of this truth. No one is coming, but you are enough. You always have been. And when you finally believe that, when you finally claim that, nothing in this world can stop you. Not fear, not failure, not fate. So rise. Rise with the fire of your own will. Rise with the courage of your own choice. Rise with the strength of your own responsibility. For the world may not save you, but you can, and you must, and you will.